Shalom, everyone. I'll say Shabbat Shalom, since this is the coming, or by the time you hear this, this will be the Shabbat. And so we give thanks for the time of rest and reflection that the Most High has given us in His Word. And we're going to reflect on His Word as we continue in our study of the book of Hebrews. We are looking at Hebrews chapter 4. And we're going to be actually covering a review of Hebrews chapter 3, but most of our time is going to be spent in the scriptures, Hebrews chapter 3, verses 7 through chapter 4, verse 13, most likely. So we've got quite a few things to cover, and we're just going to get right into it. As we begin the study, let's remind ourselves of what we have been saying and that which has been leading us, which is 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. It says, "Study to show yourselves approved unto the Most High, workmen who need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth." And right along with that, 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16, which tells us that all scripture is God-breathed and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, so that the person of the Most High may be complete, thoroughly furnished unto every good work. So as we move into Hebrews, that is the foundation. As we have been underneath the same theme, we want to remember that the theme is to rebuild the wall and then go back and fetch what the ancient ones knew and what they taught. And in doing so, that gives us a foundation and it gives us a purpose for where the Most High wants us to be living during this present age. So having said that, then we'll go ahead and begin. I think what we'll do first is read the scripture once more. So we're looking at Hebrews, and as I said, we're going to primarily focus on Hebrews 3, verses 7 through 4, verse 13. Hebrews 3:7 reads, "Wherefore, as the Holy Ghost, or the Ruach HaKodesh, says, today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts as in the provocation in the day of temptation in the wilderness, when your fathers tempted me and proved me and saw my works 40 years. Wherefore I was grieved with that generation and said, they do always err in their heart, and they have not known my ways. So I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter into my rest. Take heed, brethren, lest there be any of you of an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living Elohim, but exhort one another daily, while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. For we are made partakers of Christ if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end. While it is said today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts as in the provocation. For some, when they had heard, did provoke, howbeit not all that came out of Egypt by Moses. But with whom was he grieved 40 years? Was it not with them that had sinned, whose carcasses fell in the wilderness? And to whom swore he that they should not enter into his rest, but to them that believed not? So we see that they could not enter in because of unbelief. Hebrews chapter 4, verse 1. Let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. For unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. For we which have believed do enter into rest, as he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. For he spoke in a certain place of the seventh day on this wise, and Elohim did rest the seventh day from all his works. And in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest, seeing therefore it remains that some must enter therein, and they whom it was first preached, or to whom it was first preached, entered not in because of unbelief. Again, he limits a certain day, saying in David, today, after so long a time, as it is said, today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts. For if Yeshua or Joshua had given them rest, then would he not afterward have spoken of another day? There remains therefore a rest to the people of the Most High, for he that is entered into his rest, he has also ceased from his own works, as Elohim did from his. Let us labor therefore to enter into that rest, lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief. For the word of Yahuwah is quick or alive and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. Neither is there any creature that is not manifest in his sight, but all things are naked and open unto the eyes of him with whom we have to do. So we're going to stop reading the scripture there, and we'll go ahead and open up the presentation, and we'll cover some of these key and salient points. So as I mentioned, we read Hebrews chapter 3, starting at verse 7. But if you remember from last time, we were looking at, we were looking at the fact that in Hebrews chapter 3, the first 6 verse, we were looking at this word profession as well as the word confidence. And so we also saw that confidence and substance are the same thing. And actually, we also talked about how the profession is the same thing as what one professes. So it is actually a declaration. So when the scriptures in Hebrews chapter 3 are talking about the profession of Messiah, Yeshua, it's talking about us declaring who he is, who he says he is, and who we agree that he is. And so part of that agreement is we belong to him. We're his house. And then it says, if we hold fast the confidence and rejoicing of hope firm to the end. The confidence that we hold fast is the foundational understanding and principles of the Most High's people. And that is his word. So if we hold fast his word to the end, then that lets people know, as well as us, know that we're his house. So he's telling now the writer to the Hebrews, and again, Hebrews were the bloodline children of Israel who had believed and were believers in the Messiah, in Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ. They were believers, and they were living in very perilous and troubling times. So this letter is actually written to them to strengthen them in their belief. So they're being called to remember the beginning of their nation, which had to do with them coming out of Egypt, being in the desert, in the wilderness, and then finally going into the land. And that's what that's what this is all about. But there's a process. There was a process then, and there's a process now. So Hebrews is rehearsing, if you will, what the Most High already told his people time after time after time. Okay, so what he's telling us in Hebrews chapter 3, beginning in verse 7 is we are not to be like those in the house of Moses who were disobedient. They provoked Yahuwah in the wilderness and had to be proved for 40 years. Now, I'm just going to read the passage that this is referring to so that we can connect all of the dots. I'm in the Tanakh in Numbers chapter 14. This is the time when the children of Israel were on the verge of going into the promised land, okay, the land of promise. And the people were afraid to go into the land. So they were instructed to take a representative from each one of the 12 tribes, and they were to go into the land to spy out the land, okay? But as they and they did that. As they spied out the land, they also saw the richness of the land. They saw the abundance that was in the land, but they also saw that the land was already full of people, specifically giants. Okay, a lot of people don't talk about that, but the people that caused them to say we're like grasshoppers in their eyes, they said that because these were the Nephilim. Okay, these were those giants that were occupying that area. And the people, 10 of the spies said, yeah, the land is just like Moses said it would be, but there's also giants in that land. And so we can't take it. But Joshua and Caleb said, oh, yeah, we can take it. Let's just go up and do it. Okay. So they had this big confrontation. And in essence, the people said, we're not going up in there. All right. So the Most High then tells Moses, come on up here. I need to talk to you. Okay. And so when he did that, when he had the conversation with Moses, he told the Most High told Moses, The Most High told Moses, all right, I've had it with these people. All right. I'm getting rid of all of them, and then I'm going to start all over with you. Okay. So Moses then pleaded for his people. And the Most High said, okay, all right, I'm not going to kill everybody, and this is where it picks up, okay. In verse 20 of Numbers chapter 14, and Yahuwah said, I have pardoned according to your word, talking to Moses. But as truly as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Most High, because all those men which have seen my glory and my miracles, which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have tempted me now these 10 times, and have not listened to my voice, surely they shall not see the land, which I swore unto their fathers, neither shall any of them that provoked me see it. But my servant Caleb, because he had another spirit with him and has followed me fully, will I bring into the land where he went, and his seed shall possess it. Okay, so that's what the Most High is saying. Now, I would encourage you to read Numbers, the 14th chapter, all of it, because it goes into more detail as to what happened. But in essence, what happened was all of the people who said, we're not going in that land. Okay. The Most High said, okay, go back into the desert. I'm going to keep you out here till all of you die. And so that's where the 40 years in the desert, this is the place where that happened. And this is the place where the Most High told them was getting ready to happen. Now, when we get over just one other, it's already on the sheet here. Okay. So where it says they provoked Yahuwah in the wilderness and had to be proved for 40 years. So he took care of the nation all those 40 years, but he would not let them go into the land of their rest, their Shabbat. Okay. Because he was grieved with that generation and said, they do always err in heart. They don't know my ways. And so what he said to Moses was also recorded in Psalm 95, which is why Psalm 95 is up here. Okay. So we're just going to read that very quickly. The 95th Psalm. This is all about the same thing. Our lesson today has to do with what is the will of the Most High. How do people enter into the rest of the will of the Most High? And how does that relate to the people of the Most High today? All right. So in Psalm 95, O come, let us sing unto Yahuwah. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before his presence with thanksgiving and make a joyful noise unto him with psalms. Many of us in the congregations know those words. That's in Psalm 95, verse 1 and 2. But we stop there. And that's a mistake. I'm not talking about stop singing. I'm talking about stop the thought, because the thought is we're coming into the presence of the Most High with thanksgiving, making a joyful noise. For as verse 3 says, for Yahuwah is a great God and a great King above all objects of worship. In his hand are the deep places of the earth. The strength of the hills is his also. The sea is his, and he made it, and his hands formed the dry land. Oh, come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before Yahuwah, our maker. That's in verse 6. And then verse 7, for he is our Elohim. We are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand. And then it says, today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your heart as in the provocation and as in the day of temptation in the wilderness. When your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my work, 40 years long was I grieved with this generation, and said, it is a people that do err in their heart, and they have not known my ways, unto whom I swore in my wrath that they should not enter into my rest. And that's what I mean by we stop too soon. Yes, we should give thanks and make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. We should come before his presence with thanksgiving, making that noise. But that joyful noise, that praise that we go up, those hands that are lifted up are hands that do what he says to do. And that's what the rest of this psalm is about. The rest of the Psalm 95 is saying our forefathers didn't do that. Now, this gets to the reason why the letter to the Hebrews is so important. The children of Israel had this relationship with the Most High where they saw him deliver them from the oppression of the nation of Egypt and their oppressors in Egypt. Deliverance and salvation are synonyms. They were saved out of Egypt. But once they were saved out of Egypt, he took them into the wilderness to prove them. And what that means is to see if they would be this people who had been saved. And therefore, he could take them into the land that they were to be saved to. They weren't just to come out of Egypt, they were to enter into the promised land, because that's where their rest was. They had been laboring all these years for somebody else. All of their profits were going into somebody else's bank account. All of their time, all their energy, all their blood, all their sweat, all their tears were profiting other people. And the Most High said, I've heard your cry, and now I'm bringing you out. And he did that. But then he took them into the wilderness. And once they were into the wilderness, he said, okay, the land of promise is right over there. All you have to do is go take it. I've already prepared it. Just the same way that I took care of you in Egypt, I'll take care of you now. That's why he swore in his wrath that they were not going to enter into his rest. So all the people who witnessed that were grown folk and witnessed the blessing of the Most High, they all died in that wilderness, except for two people. Now, we read about Caleb, but Joshua or Yeshua was also the other person, because it was those two spies that said, we can take this land. The Most High has already given it to us. So they got a chance to go in, but everybody else, including Moses, died in the wilderness. Okay, so that's what Psalm 95 is talking about. Psalm 95 is being referenced in Hebrews chapter 3, which is why we're looking at it. Okay, so this rest is what we're going to be spending some time talking about. There is a rest for the Most High's people. Okay, but how do we get into that rest? Well, it says, be careful, family, lest there be any of you of an evil heart, and you depart from the living Yahuwah. And so therefore we are to exhort one another daily while it's still called today, lest we be hardened, just like our ancestors were, by the deceitfulness of sin. And the deceitfulness of sin, once it hardens us, it stops us from getting into the promised land, the place that has been prepared for us. We stop our own blessing. This is the context of salvation. Okay, we are saved from our enemies. We are delivered from our enemies, and we are then given the opportunity to be in a place of rest, and we'll talk more about that. So let's just continue. Okay, so that happens if we hold fast the confidence, and we talked about that last time, which is the foundation. Okay, what is the foundation? The Most High is our King. The Most High will take care of us. The Most High will fight our battles for us, and he will deliver us and give us this rest. Okay, that's that confidence. That's that foundation. And so again, today, if you will hear his voice, well, how do we hear his voice? His voice is in his word. His voice is in the prophets that are delivering his word to his people. Okay. And we know, as it says here, that our ancestors hardened their hearts, and therefore they did not enter into that rest. So that's what we were talking about last time. Now, as we go forth, this should cause us to fear. And now we're going to talk about a couple of different aspects of this shalom, this or Shabbat, this rest. This should cause us to fear. What should cause us to fear? Knowing what happened to our ancestors because of their unbelief should cause us to fear, because now it's our turn. We're going to have to make the same decisions that the ancestors had to make. Well, what decision is that? Do we listen to the Most High and do what he tells us, or do we listen to our own desires and follow our own way? We can do either one, but there are consequences for the actions that we take, having been delivered from the hand of our enemies. Okay, so it's actually says, and let me read it in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 2. It says, for unto us, I'll read verse 2. For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. We've got two words Well, actually, three. Two of them are highlighted here, but the one that's not highlighted is faith. All right. So this passage in Hebrews tells us that the gospel is not new, faith is not new, and the idea of the kingdom is not new. Our ancestors had an intimate relationship with those words because those words had to do with their relationship with their creator. So the same gospel that was preached to us was preached to them. That's where these scriptures then come into play. Yeah, let's look at those, at least a couple of them. Okay. All right, let's do this one first. Oh yeah, it's already highlighted. Matthew chapter 9, verse 35. It says, "And Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing every sickness and every disease among the people." Now, let me ask you a question. Jesus is on the scene, okay? He is preaching the gospel of the kingdom. Here is my question for you. Is that a different gospel than we heard when we surrendered ourselves to the blessing of the preaching of the gospel? I would submit to you that there are not two gospels. There's only one gospel, and it's the gospel of the kingdom. So let's just look at one other place. We'll come back to this in just a second. I want to look at Matthew chapter 4, verse 23. It says, And Jesus went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people. This is the first time in the quote unquote New Testament that the word gospel is used. All right. So gospel is used as something that Yeshua, Jesus, was doing in his teaching and in his preaching. So if you look up the word gospel, what you find is this word right here. Actually, let me go here now. Okay. And that word is euangelion, rather. Okay. Which is the same word. It's a Greek word, and transliterated, that word would be evangel. Okay. So it's the same word that evangelize comes from. All right. So that word then is the gospel. That's why we're looking at it. And it means good tidings. Okay. Now, or glad tidings. So that's what the word gospel means in the Greek, which the New Testament was written in. Okay, so we're going to look at one other thing, and then we'll go back to the slides. So that's the word gospel. Now, if we look up the word kingdom, okay, Matthew chapter 24, verse 14, it says, "And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations." So we're going to look up that word kingdom, and then we'll go back to the slides. Kingdom is a Greek word. Well, I'll just play it for you.
Strong's G 932. Basileia. Basileia.
Basileia is the word. Okay. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the definition. What it actually means is the royal power or the kingship or the dominion or the rule. Okay. So we're giving the generic definitions. Okay. So if you were to look up that word and in the context, generically, that's pretty much what it means. Okay. So this gospel of the kingdom or the dominion or the rulership of the kingdom is what's being talked about. Okay. And that word is actually the root word for, or the word that, if you were to look at the etymology of the word, it's the same word that you've heard about the basilica with the Catholic Church. The basilica is that same root word, which is that same Greek word, which means the dominion. It's the place of dominion. So I'm not even going to get into why that's not appropriate for human beings to have, but the Catholic Church uses that word because they see themselves as those who are having dominion over the rest of the world. Now, not just the Catholic Church. However, that's not the point of this. The point of this is to let us see what those words mean and the context in which those words are given. And so now we'll go back to the slides and we'll finish out from there. Okay, so where it says, well, the gospel, what was the gospel that was preached to them as well as us? It's the good news. That's what good gospel means, or the glad tidings of the kingdom. So that's what Matthew 4:23 said, Matthew 9:35, and Matthew 24:14, the ones that we were just looking at. The scriptures about the kingdom are also listed here as well. So those are the two words. Here's the point. Just because we're living after the cross, or after the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Yeshua, does not mean that before the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Yeshua, that the Most High's people did not know these things. Even when Yeshua came and was giving that message of the gospel, the message was the gospel of the kingdom, which the people already understood. They already knew that this is the rulership of the Most High that we have been told about all of our lives and throughout our cultural history. And now the good news is that kingdom has come. Okay. And so their experience, though, was when they went into the land of promise, they were to assist in setting up the kingdom of the Most High on the earth then, because they were to be a kingdom of priests to everyone around them. So they knew these concepts. And that's why in Hebrews, the children of those who were disobedient are being told, now that you have come into a right relationship with Yeshua, now that he has delivered you from the kingdom of darkness and has called you into the kingdom of his dear son, in order to get to the kingdom of his dear son, you have to do it the same way, not the same actual acts, but you have to do it in the same manner as those who were your ancestors were expected to do, which means when I give you instructions, follow the instructions, because those instructions lead you to the Shabbat, if you will, or to that rest, which is what we're going to be looking at as we continue. Okay, so again, what is the gospel? The gospel is both a noun and a verb. Okay, the noun part is this good message. The verb part is how we announce that good message. That's what the gospel is. Okay, it's a good message that is announced to the Most High's people. All right, and it's the same word as glad tidings. All right, that's in Luke chapter 1 verse 19. If you remember, the tidings that were expressed as Yeshua was about to be born. Okay, tidings of great joy. Okay, why was there great joy? Because your king is coming. Not only that, your king has arrived. Okay, so the scriptures say the law and the prophets were until John. And since that time, the kingdom of Yahuwah is preached, and every man is pressed into that kingdom. So again, what is the kingdom? It is the dominion. It's the reign. It's the royal purview, if you will, of the king. Okay. And it's from a verb which means to reign, okay, or to ascend to the throne, or to be inducted into royalty. You know, on the human being level, we see a very weak representation of that as this other royal in Great Britain is about to be inducted. Okay, so that is, he is in being inducted into a kingdom. Great Britain is more than just that island. At one time, that island was the hub for rulership over the planet, and the king of that whole enterprise stayed on that island. All right. Now that has been greatly diminished, but the concept came from the Bible. Now, so that's one word for kingdom. It's the dominion. The other word for kingdom is the one that we talked about, basileia. Okay. And that has to do with royalty. It has to do with rulership. It has to do with the realm of rulership of the royal that is over it. Okay. Now, what we need to understand as the Most High's people is this is talking about our king. This kingdom has a royal in charge. That's who Yeshua is. He is our royal, which means, and that's why the Most High said, the first commandment, you shall have no other gods before me. In other words, I'm the one. We may live in different jurisdictions, but we belong, if we are a part of his kingdom, we already have a royal. We already have a ruler. We already have a king. We already have a government that's on his shoulders. Okay. So, and he's the one that rules from the basilica of heaven. But what's getting ready to happen, which is why we're studying Hebrews, is that all of that is about to manifest itself on the earth. This is that time. Just like when the shepherds and the well, actually also the wise men from the east were told the king has been born. Well, the fullness of time had transpired. All of a sudden, the king is there. Well, the fullness of time is transpiring as we speak for the king to actually be enthroned on the earth. That's what's on the horizon. And that's why the king's people need to know and not be like our ancestors trying to do things our own way, because the king won't have that. And just because we've been saved out of the kingdom of darkness doesn't automatically give us the rights and the privileges of being in the kingdom. The only way that we're in the kingdom is when we do what the king says to do. That's the point. So our ancestors' response to the word of the kingdom, that word was preached unto them just like it's preached to us, but they did not allow that word to be mixed with faith. And this is that third word that is not really highlighted in the presentation. But the word faith is an action word. That's why James said, faith without works is dead, being alone. The works by themselves won't get it, and the faith by itself doesn't get it. It's when the faith and the works come together. And that's, so what do we have faith in? The word that's preached. Okay, so let's go back to our ancestors. What word was preached to them? I gave you a land of promise. It's right over there. Go take it. That was the word that was given to them. The faith that had to be mixed with that is the people believed that word more than they believed the eyes, their own eyes and their own experiences, saying we can't take that. Doing it the faith way would mean I hear what you're saying, I see what's on the horizon, but you're saying that I can take it. I believe you. I'm taking it. That's how the word preached would have been mixed with faith. And again, for Joshua and Caleb, that was a done deal. But for the other 10 spies, no, they all died out there because they didn't mix that word with faith. Okay, so faith has always been substance. Always. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And that word substance has to do with foundation. Faith is the foundation. And that foundation has to do with our obeying. So, verse 3 says, we who believed or obeyed, there's rest that we enter into. We know that there's somewhere to go that's different than where we are currently. We're right now, folks, the Most High's people, we're not in the land of promise. We're in the land of our captivity, but we're about to be taken out of the land of our captivity. Are we ready to go? And not only are we ready to go, but are we ready to enter in to this rest, the land of rest that the Most High has for us? Okay. Now, here is where the Shabbat comes in. And I'll say again, Shabbat Shalom. This is what the seventh day in its fulfillment is all about. Just like the Most High, let me see if I can find that. Yeah, let me read verse 3 of chapter 4 in Hebrews. For we which have believed do enter into rest, as he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. This is taking the nation back to Genesis chapter 2. When the Most High had completed creating the world, he set aside a day and he said he hallowed it or set it aside and he rested on that day. It doesn't mean he was tired. It means he ceased work because his work was done. That is the pattern for us eternally. And that's why it says it was done from the foundation of the world. The day of rest is a day that was instituted at the foundation of the world. Okay. So once the world has been created, the completion of it is the day of rest. And that's what the Most High's people need to understand. And so it goes on to say, for we which have believed, I read that. For verse 4, for he spoke in a certain place of the seventh day on this wise, and Elohim did rest the seventh day from all his works. And in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest. Seeing therefore it remains that some must enter therein, and they to whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief. This rest that's being talked about was the promised land. Okay. And the reason they didn't enter into it is because they didn't do the work. Okay. So what he's telling us is do the work and then you get the rest. All right. So therefore, there remains a Shabbat to the people of the Most High, but the seventh day is only to remind us of that larger meaning of the Shabbat. Okay, so that's where we get back into Psalm 95, which we did read. The word rest in Psalm 95 is a Hebrew word, and it means repose, something that's peaceful, a place of abode, something that's comfortable, something that is quiet, a resting place, that which is still. In other words, we have ceased from our own labors. Our people need the Shabbat. We need that rest. We have been laboring under our own power long enough. So he's saying, cease your labor and enter into my rest. That's his encouragement to us. Okay, so what is this Shabbat? First of all, it's a special holiday or a day, and that's in Exodus. It's also that word is Shabbaton. The next word Shabbath or Shabbat is from the Hebrew, which also means an intermission. Okay, so that's more like the Shabbat that comes every 7 days. We every 7 days, or yeah, on the seventh of every day, every week, we take an intermission. But that's to remind us of the larger Shabbat. Okay, and then that third word, Shabbath, is a primitive root, and it means to repose, which we've talked about, to desist from exertion, used in many implied relations. Okay. It means to cease. There's also the connotation of celebration, to be put away, to rest, to rid, to take away. So that's what the Shabbat is. All right. So in the Shabbat, as Hebrews chapter 4 talks about, we are to labor to enter into that rest. So once we labor and we finish the labor, then we enter into that rest. And so doing that once a week reminds us of the blessing that the Most High has for us. All right. Now, we're not in that Shabbat yet. Okay. The nation of Israel was to experience a place of rest called the land of promise, which was Canaan land. But even in the land of Canaan, once they got there, they still had to do things. So it doesn't mean complete cessation. It has to do with the peace that comes along with being where you're supposed to be. So that's a understanding. So again, the Shabbat or the rest means in Exodus chapter 20, verse 11, to cease or to desist. Another group of explanations: to cause to cease, to exterminate, or to destroy. That can be a Shabbat. We could probably later talk a little bit more about that, because that has to do with destroying the works of the flesh. Okay, we need to put that to rest. Okay. To remove, to cause to fail. There's another word that means to observe or to keep the Sabbath. Now, the Shabbat is a different word than seventh. Okay, that's something that we need to understand too. All right. But so Shabbat doesn't mean seven. Shabbat means what we just said it meant. But on the seventh day of every 7-day cycle, that's when the Shabbat is commemorated based on what the Most High gave to us, his people. But no, the word does not mean seven. The word means to cease from labor. Hebrews 4:10 through, I think this will be the last one. So here's what is to happen. He that is entered into the rest for the people of the Most High has ceased from his own works, as Yahuwah did when he ceased from creating the world. Okay. So, but in order to get to the ceasing part, we have to labor first. So that's why it says we must labor to enter into that rest. So what is the labor? Part of our labor, especially in this time, is preaching to the dry bone. We're preaching to the children of Israel that don't know who they are. We're preaching to those who are in the church and don't realize that Jesus is real, and don't realize that not only is he real, he has a real purpose for you. Okay. So the labor of those at this particular point in time is to awaken the Most High's people to the fact that we are the Most High's people. And the other part of the labor is live that way, live by example. So what is our labor? Preaching to the dry bones, awakening the Most High's people, and then living an example so that the Most High's people can see, here's what it means to be woke. And it has nothing to do with all this foolishness that's out in the culture right now. So when did this happen for the Most High? In other words, when did the Shabbat happen for the Most High? When he finished his work. That's what Genesis chapter 2, verse 3 says. When does it happen for us? When we finish our work. Okay. But we have to labor to enter into his rest, because why do we have to labor? Because his word is alive. His word is powerful. His word is sharper than any two-edged sword, and his word divides our soul from our spirit, joints from our marrow, and that his word discerns the thoughts and intents of the heart. In other words, his word discerns who we really are and what we really think and our real intentions, not the ones that we pretend to have one day of a week, a couple of hours out of that day, or even 3 days a week. It's our lifestyle. The word of the Most High separates that which is not of the Most High and from that which is of the Most High. And this is really important because we're in the time of separation as we speak. People must declare who they are. There's no more hiding. And it is the word that will make that declaration. Okay. So that's part of the labor. Okay. So we have to labor to enter into his rest, because that's what his word is here to do. It's to take us off the fence. I'll say it that way. We've been riding the fence too long. We're either going to declare that we are the children of the Most High, or we're going to declare, no, we're the children of Satan. And as we speak, that is what is going on. It's in the news. It's in how we treat one another and how other people treat us. The word is doing this. That's why the scriptures say it's marvelous in our eyes. We see what the Most High is doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. He is performing his word just like he said he would. And what we find is that no creature is unmanifest in his sight. That's what I'm talking about. This is that time. Everybody's going to have to declare who they are. Everybody's going to have to say, I'm either in it or I'm not. There is no hiding anymore. Okay. So, well, what does in it mean? It means what the word says is what I believe, and therefore that's what I say. And if what I say is in contradiction to what the world is saying, I must declare that now. I can't pretend that I'm ambiguous over things. That's why we have to labor to enter into his rest. We're about ready to go into the next topic, so we'll hold off on Hebrews chapter 4 verses 14 through 16, and we'll, Father willing, start there next time. Father, bless you and keep you. Father, make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. Father, lift up his countenance upon you and give you and your family